Hi, everybody, and welcome back to SEOconspiracy.com with myself, Dixon Jones, and Laurent Borelli. And how are you, Laurent?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself? I love the
I'm
haircut.
okay, but we're going to talk about a subject today that, I don't know much about. So it's an interesting conspiracy. So the question today is, who runs Google? And particularly, who runs Google search? Because we know that Larry and Sergey have gone. They've, pretty much, apparently they're still consultants, but they're not technically on the board. They obviously have shareholders and, shares and get lots of money in every second, I'm sure, but they're not running things anymore. So what's happened? Who's running it?
Well, furthermore, Larry and Sergey, it was their diploma. It was a project in college in the 90s. So I think mentally they can't connect anymore with that. But we have a fact. Amit Singhal left.
Yep.
We knew very well his style, his values, what he wanted to achieve. That was one path, one way of building a search engine. And he's the one who actually built Google, the search engine. Larry and Sergey started it, but he redefined the PageRank, spam, relevancy, and so on.
Created all the scale, but he was creating a web page focused search engine, trying to index the web, and the web got too big. So at some point it turned over to topics and entities and those kind of things, and RankBrain. And it looks like at the top of search. It's not easy to find on Google, but it looks like at the top of search. We've got somebody that came out of the MetaWeb purchase. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jeff Dean?
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, that's why it's a little bit confusing. Who is coming out of MetaWeb or not? But what we know, it's Jeff Dean and Ben Gomez, apparently, who are running the show. Stop the press. This podcast was recorded a couple of months ago. Since then, things change at the head of Google search. Exit Ben Gomez and Jeff Dean, and comes in Prabhakar Raghavan. He is heading search, voice, and ads. I reported that in the news, but it's too early to see a different move, and I don't think anyway the vision is gonna change. Machine learning, deep learning, AI, whatever you want to call it, is here to stay. We will do a video on the new direction of Google search when we see it happening. I already have a couple of hints, but I think this podcast is still very relevant to understand where is Google, the search engine, going. Enjoy. They both seem to be very much in tune with the so-called quote-unquote AI trend, which is not a trend, but more like a marketing term, I guess, because we could get into what is machine learning and deep learning subsets of AI.
Yeah, so they're both AI driven, or
yes.
which is a different approach to the previous world. And also, of course, in somewhere in there, it looks like we had another guy who headed up Google and then legged it off, somebody like that, that then legged it off to Apple UK. So maybe one of the reasons why Google had a little hiatus in 2018, 19. There was a little bit of a change of the old guard and the new guard, and they're waiting for it to just settle in.
We spoke last time about the scope, the place of Google search within Alphabet, the mothership. Yeah. And today we're not going to spread rumors about people we don't know much about. But what's funny is that it's not a clear information. It's not really obvious who is running the show at Google search. And in my opinion, I don't believe two guys heading company. Okay, Google search is still its own its own entity within the Alphabet ecosystem.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's you need one vision, one guy, one spirit, one. If they work it out, two, fine. I'm waiting for
true, okay, yeah. On this one, we don't know what the conspiracy is. We don't know who's there, and we're not going to pretend to anything.
That's the conspiracy in itself.
But here's the interesting thing: is that I do feel that for a long time, those two ideas of a machine learning based approach and a sort of an old school approach were competing as central ideas, and I think they were competing probably at a human level, but also in the algorithm level as well. But I think that they're committing themselves more and more to this to the machine learning approach now.
Here's the rumor is who is running the show, right? That's the conspiracy. The fact is, and it's an oversimplification. When I'm guilty, you're guilty. When we say RankBrain is the boss at Google, it's a troll, because RankBrain in itself doesn't do anything. It's just one layer within a whole bunch of layers. But can you give us like an explanation of how those hummingbird, RankBrain, what does that want to achieve? What's the purpose here to basically?
Well, I mean, I ran a little presentation to the PR industry yesterday, and of course, PR people are not SEO, technical SEOs at all. So, they gave me this wonderful topic: what are the 10 most important SEO concepts for Google, which is completely impossible. So I had to come up and say, look, you can't get those right, but what you can do is look at the goal of where they're going to go. And the one that is published is, of course, the quality rater guidelines, which are the judge. So those humans are the judge of Google's algorithms. So whichever system or algorithms or set of algorithms they're using humans that are using the quality rater guidelines to judge the success of the algorithms. So the algorithms can come in and out and all over the place 1,000 times a day, and then they're getting scored. So the machine learning is effectively getting scored. So I think that they have to use machine learning and AI to start generating different versions of results far faster than any manual algorithm change can do. So it has to be a sort of a machine learning AI. But yeah, it's too far in the Google mothership for anybody outside to see. I still think that the only person that really knows it is probably about 3: Paula Ha, probably Ben Gomez, and let's go for Jeff Dean. Probably those 3 are the only ones that know what the hell's happening at the top level.
Yeah, because the way it works is an engineer is working on something very specific. It kind of has a broad idea of what's going on in the overall. But
absolutely. So you can see that where where there are people that are open to talking to us on the front end and stuff. So Martin Splitz on the JavaScript side is very open about what they're doing with the rendering and stuff.
He's in Zurich. He's not in Mountain
he's in
Dew.
Zurich, and he's way down. He's way down there. Everybody is his boss, but he's open about what he's doing and stuff, and it's very interesting to see. He'll do something. He doesn't know whether that's going to end up as part of the ranking system. All he knows is his role is to try and make it so that Google can better render JavaScript without overloading the servers and the systems and stuff. And it's interesting to watch him work. He in lockdown he's doing Twitch TVs. So he's basically, as he's doing coding and stuff, he's doing on open source stuff. So he's not doing any secrets from Google secrets, but he's showing you his thinking and talking about and stuff. And it's great to pop in and have a look. My coding skills are not anywhere like his, but it's still interesting to see. And I think that's the same with most Googlers in the development side is that, yeah, as you say, they're in a project that is trying to make a little thing better. Whether that little thing then ends up as part of the algorithm is entirely due to the AI and the machine learning and various other bits and pieces, and then has to be subject to one of those launch meetings that they have to see whether to implement somebody's change.
You got to move back in the middle of the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here you go. You're beautiful now. What's interesting?
You see, I've had the COVID-19 haircut now. My wife got the razor out of the, you know.
Yeah, I need
yeah.
My hat is hiding the mess.
Yeah, the head of Google search is way off the head of Google Alphabet, and they're completely different types of people, aren't they?
What we stated last time is that, and it's a fact, in the quarterly report, there is no mention of Google's the search engine anymore. The only mention on the last was, there's a peak of search around the COVID topic. That's it. That was the only mention of the search engine. Now, our entire industry is focusing on something that Alphabet is just seeing as let's say, a cash cow. That's how much they put into. They put more resources into the cloud, into all the revolutionary, changing the world type of thing than the search engine. So now, within this search engine, what is the scope of evolution? We spoke about it last time, a couple of weeks ago, when we said that the machine learning is dumbing down, that's the word? Dumbing down the information. Right now, well, it's also a fact. If you check a query with a little nuance, a little finesse, it's because the page is formatted in a certain way that a robot can understand. Well, it's gonna rank in the top level or the micro format type of listing. But this information is a bullet list of how to pick what wine to drink with a coq au vin. Okay, that's dumbing down. It's not as the example you took was like how to tie a bow tie.
Yeah,
that's easy. Yeah. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you pick an URL. You say this is the best. Fine. It could not. The debate around is it the best URL or not, is it the most interesting way to tie a bow tie, is not as nuanced.
It's more than that, isn't it? Because what Google can do, having decided that, is they can just say, right, we think we know how to tie a bow tie. I've got this data from the schema, FAQ schema that's just been given over this website over here. Now I'm seeing all these other web pages that are also talking about how to tie a bow tie. I can then blend this information into my knowledge graph and basically have my own database on how to record on how to tie a bow tie. So how to tie a bow tie becomes a entity in its own right, or tying a knot and bow tie, the relationship between the two. And at that point, the real danger for SEOs is that Google can then argue that it's their information. It's nobody else's information because it's a blend of so many other bits and pieces that you couldn't say whose information it was. So there's no point in Google then citing their data source if their data source comes from 20 different sources. Isn't that a danger for SEO?
And that's why I always say, if you want to give out, if you want to format certain type of information to appear in the people also ask or knowledge graph, any of the stuff, control it. Because you are giving out the information, people are not gonna come on your page. It's part of the branding, marketing side of the business. So I say, be careful about what you're giving out. My way of doing it is I put it in a specific part of the site, usually like a question answer type of section of the site. This is the food for the micro format. This is the food for, and the rest of the site is controlled with information that I leave Google bot crawl, but I
So
don't.
we've done that on inlinks.net. Because we just launched this market trends tool that is kind of like Google Trends on steroids, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
great
very
because
cool.
you can sit there and say, right, in the automotive industry, what cars are suddenly getting everybody's interest yesterday or last week, or and it's sort of changing day by day. But what we've done is we don't know if it'll work yet, but what we're trying is we've made all of the marketing category entirely free, no login. Google can quite happily crawl it all. We want to try and enrich that so that if you want to know, what's happening in the marketing industry around, I did a test on contextual advertising, for example. It goes to the contextual advertising topic. I'm going to show you that Google can crawl it. We probably need to add some more content, but it's got the data. But all of the other categories are behind the walled garden, and you need a paid account to be able to see. So Google can't get to that. And I think we may not have cracked it yet, but it's the right approach anyway. You only give Google, what you can give away to everybody for free. You can't give Google the stuff that you're trying to charge for.
Not only that, and you gotta accept to play the game. If you can't complain, you are like a weather site or rugby site, news site, right? And you format the information, it's all taken, swallowed by Google and all the other ones. That's the name of the game. You can't complain afterwards. Or if you didn't know, well, that's even worse. To end up on this topic, to clarify, I think the main idea here is if we relate to the latest core update in May 2020, because I don't know when you are watching this video, but mid 2020, there was a core update. So that's ranking signals being changed. But it wasn't. It's just more like a realignment because machine learning went too much one way. So with the core signals, they're trying to balance out what the machine learning, because when it's too flat, when it's too... A robot has no heart, has no soul. An algorithm doesn't have a soul. Well, a few years ago, the people who did Google, they were putting a little more about, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you can do it better than me. This organic, this more like the human touch into the algorithm.
And in the loop's really important in the system. I think that's why they haven't got rid of...
Oh, we lost Dixon. He's back. Hold on. We lost you for 1 second. So
the idea of a human in the loop is important even for the algorithm. So I think this is one of the reasons why Wikipedia has become such an important data source for their machine learning algorithms and stuff, because it starts with the human in the loop. But you're right. If Google's results don't contain passion, Bing's results seem to contain some more passion sometimes than Google's do, and I think that if they want to keep people using Google search, then they need to keep that passion in the system. So maybe the algorithm is all about trying to get some of that diversity back into the system. Of course, I suppose they're also got one eye on the American elections, so they don't want to make sure they have the same. They don't get screwed by complaints of bias in the American elections. But who knows? It's a possibility. But I think you came in with the point that the old guard has moved aside, and not just the old guard, but also the philosophies of the old guard have moved aside,
exactly.
And that now AI is the Google search is being led by AI concepts, machine learning concepts, entity-based approaches, and that will continue, and so it's hard to keep on trying to think about things in terms of keywords when Google has moved so much into the idea of topics and concepts.
Yeah. My final advice would be educate yourself about what is supposedly AI, what is machine learning, what is deep learning. You have even books. I can put it in the description below.
So I'd recommend a book called Entity-Oriented Search by Karol, that's a Polish name, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which is a bit embarrassing. But Entity-Oriented Search is a good book to go and have a look at.
Yeah, my advice is I just searched it while you were speaking. Bootstrapping Machine Learning by Louis Dorard. I interview him. He's a PhD in machine learning.
Okay.
And what's cool about these books that you have the code, the Python, the library, so you can test out machine learning in your Gmail and stuff. You can run some experiment, so you understand how the system works and what Google. The big difference is what Google has today and what it's trying to achieve. Once you understand what does Google want, and that's what Inlinks is doing, that's what I'm doing with Rank4Win and my services. That's the path we took. What does Google want versus what does Google has?
So you're going to put both of those links in the comments.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
I will.
Okay. What are we
Next
talking
time.
about next time?
PageRank formula. Why did everybody? The interpretation of the PageRank formula is wrong or is incomplete. Let's put it this way. And every single SEO or 99.99999% of SEO don't get. And which PageRank are we talking about? Is there 1, 2? Can we still see it? Mystery. Until next time.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.